training, learning management, the way we know it is dead. It's dead. Most people just don't know it yet. It's completely dead. Let's just take our friends in the MRO business, right? Yeah. The way they do business with apartment industry, do you think honestly that they have a standing chance if Amazon tomorrow comes with a multifamily division?
I would tell you that every single one of them has a standing chance, but Amazon would be an immediate major player. Immediate.
When someone calls in an AC, it's an emergency. You're going to have, during the summertime, emergencies at all sites at the same time.
Sure.
That person could only cover one place at one time.
The centralization for small mom and pop is outsourcing. Like use contract labor on.
When we're trying to centralize, basically what we're doing is super scaling that business, right? Because you take a scale business and then you add more scale businesses and you say, we're gonna no super scale. Where the mistakes happen are, I know you've been close to Jay Parsons.
Yeah.
What would you attribute his success with, his writings and content and everything?
It's a great question, Adrian. It's something I've actually thought a lot about, a lot to the point where Jay would probably be embarrassed that I've thought about it this much. Number one, you can't discount the consistency that he has. He is so consistent in what he delivers. And I know a lot of people have thought, especially when he was at RealPage, like he had a team doing it for him. That has all been Jay. That has been Jay 100%. His first job out of college here in Dallas, he was actually a reporter for the Dallas Morning News. And that journalistic inquiry has never really left him. And he's incredibly intelligent and he's constantly asking the questions. I always boil it down to so what and what if, but he's so prolific about having an observation, documenting that observation, and doing it in an incredibly timely manner. And that's the part I have a hard time doing with it. Like I'll think about something, I won't necessarily write on it for 2 weeks, and suddenly it's no longer a timely issue. So
obviously you know him, way better than I do. We only did a podcast and I follow his writings, but sure. The feeling that I get from outside looking in is that a lot of times he creates the trend of thinking. It's not necessarily that is the thing. He decides is the thing, right?
Yeah.
He's so much ahead of everybody else that he actually sets the tone. He sets the trends. It's not like he's in the trend. He senses that trend of thinking that, when you're looking at this, nobody is not, even paying attention. He sees it from a certain angle, his angle.
Yep.
He puts his, stamp on it and his spin. Well, not spin in a negative way, but
right.
His stamp, his signature on it. And all of a sudden, that becomes the thing to look for.
Agreed. Completely agree. And yes, and if you watch his stuff long enough, you see the themes that come out in it. One of the themes that has been consistent is the myth that affordability is a challenge at every level of the industry. And he very often writes on the affordability gap between workforce housing and brand new luxury class A. And you look at the brand new luxury class A and what we see from a, rent to income ratios on there, it's actually going down and it's well below 3, but it's one of those things where two things can be true at the same time. There is increasing affordability at the top end of the scale and decreasing affordability at the lower ends of the scale, which is a massive challenge for our industry overall. And that's another theme that you can see through Jay's writings and his conversations and his presentations is, okay, how do we eliminate a lot of the barriers that exist to be able to deliver profitably attainable housing, workforce housing. Like these deals don't pencil out. I mean, when 52%, 52 cents of every dollar goes to infrastructure development and, the cost of inspections and everything but the community itself, you can't deliver those well for a product that isn't top end or highly subsidized through LIHTC or some other type of, tax burden. And, that's another theme that goes through his stuff. But I agree with you. He has the ability to sense where there are challenges within the market. And the other thing is he's not afraid to say it. I think there are other people who see things like that and they, for whatever reason, are like hesitant to actually bring it up.
That's an interesting point you're bringing.
By the way, we started recording a long time ago, just so you know.
Oh yeah. No, I figure, and I'm good with that. Like
Okay,
I'm actually super good with it. When I first started, it was like, hey, let's welcome the guest. Let me like introduce you to the guest. I'm just way over that, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I just the way I get into it with my guests is kind of, I mean, we did the same. We kind of did the same when
Yep.
you were a guest, when you came by to see us. It's just like, let's just sit down, man. Let's make sure the cameras are rolling and like get straight in a conversation. I think that's like the most natural way that you could do it. It doesn't have to be like anything, scripted, like we got to start a certain way. Actually, I believe that actually deters people from like even going past like 1 or 2 minutes. It's like, I just want to get some information here,
Yeah.
right? Versus, let us introduce the guest. Is this person, whatever. So you're right. I wanted to say here, in regards to like Jay versus others in an industry, what I'm learning about, the more I get to know so many people, and honestly, like all sorts of individuals, very accomplished at the highest level of organizations. I don't see an appetite for the real conversations on camera. Like now, off camera, I have very candid conversations with people, and
Agreed.
In like private settings, right? I'll say people use this, safe space, and I truly hate, right? When you say we're not like you were saying to me now, we're not safe space. Yeah, but you're gonna put that on the internet, so how's that safe?
Yeah, exactly.
And everybody, like I see people using this, like Zoom setting, whatever. This is a safe space. No, it's not a safe space. And
Yeah.
honestly, I know some people might have this like feeling that they need, they need to feel protected somehow, like from something, a repercussion about anything that they might be saying. I don't have that need. Not to say that I'm not empathic, right? But I think a lot of it really going back to like why Jay does, others don't do as much, speaking their mind up. I thought about it a lot. Comes from insecurities, and then when you think about a lot of our executives in the industry, especially on the management side, can speak too much on a service supplier. But I know the management side because I spent 20 years over.
Yep.
And a lot of them came through the ranks, right? They earn it, right? A lot of them started groundskeeper level, leasing agent level. They work really hard, right? And once they get to the top of the ladder right there, they're in a C-suite, for example, it makes it hard to let go. It becomes like, how could I eliminate all the liabilities, right?
Yes.
From, and then it becomes a very sanitized environment,
Yeah.
right? To where they're trying to remove all the, and I think that actually leads to the lack of innovation in the industry on a management side. Their appetite to accept innovations and like really stuff that it's actually working in the outside world, outside of our bubble. It comes from that as well, right? When you think about how they made money, you invest in an asset, keep it for 3, 5, 7 years, you sell it, you make your money. It's a well-known thing that's been working for decades.
Yep, rinse and repeat.
And then how do you incentivize that person to take risk or perceived risk? Say, I'm not risking to like disrupt my entire business. What's funny about today, the age in which we're living, 2025, is that they don't have that luxury anymore. Nobody has the luxury anymore of saying like, we could still run the way things have been running for many, many decades, still make our money. For the reasons, one of the reasons you mentioned, there's a lot of government regulation, there's a lot of cost that is being affected by those regulations, right? A lot of that cost, and you don't have any control. Insurance goes up, you don't have any control. Regulation goes up, you got to pay up if you want to build or like manage, in some areas. So those you have zero control. So that is from your margins, because you can't really like keep the same margins while people salaries and their buying power doesn't go at the same rate, doesn't go up, because otherwise you're gonna keep raising prices and you're gonna have empty apartments. So there's a balance. That's one. And then the other one is AI is gonna be the type of destruction that we never experienced in our lifetime. And I think our minds are not even like fast enough to understand at the speed of which AI advances and it becomes better and better by the day. We're not gonna be able to protect this bubble. And I think there's disruption coming our way. Love to chat about that at some point
Absolutely.
too.
And there's a ton to unpack in there, Adrian.
Yeah.
But I like the fact that you brought up the resistance to change in the industry, because I want to talk to you about that on the maintenance
100%.
side. AI on the maintenance side, I want to talk to you. I've been going deep into it on the marketing side. I think it's much like centralization, which is another thing I want to talk with you about. Centralization of leasing gets all the hype. In fact, I talked to Tyler Christiansen at Funnel about this. He's by the time this episode comes out, that episode will already be out. And I straight up asked him, I'm like, is it all about the hype there? Because I think the back of the house, both from an accounting perspective, and I think from a maintenance perspective, so I want to get your opinion on it. There's so much AI can do and deliver real value that, yeah, it's not necessarily as sexy as the chatbot that's talking with, your prospect, but I'm much more about the value than the sexy part of it. All of this has to fit within a world that institutional investors are investing capital for anywhere between 3 to call it 10 years and want to recycle that capital into the next deal, into the next deal, into the next deal. In fact, there was an article that came out today, not to timestamp this episode, but they did some research over the last 10 years where, yes, we saw rents on average going up by 5.58% over that time frame, even with the calm we've had recently. But the expense side of it's been going up by 6.5%. So actually the gross margins on these multifamily deals have actually been shrinking over the last decade, even with skyrocketing rents. So anyways, lots we can go there, but I actually want to go somewhere first, because you started this whole thing off by surprising me with questions about Jay Parsons. So shout out to Jay. You have carved a niche that I didn't see coming. And I'd love to know and get your opinion on a content perspective from the maintenance side. And I will fully readily admit this was a blind spot for me. Of course, there's going to be people who are, doing maintenance something else and doing some phenomenal content. But I hadn't really thought about it. What made you dive into this game? Like what was it that attracted you into the content game to begin with?
So great question. This is a great topic. I love talking about this. By the way, all the topics that you mentioned. So the question is, how much time do we have?
I got all afternoon, but I know you got to go think. I don't put time limits on these. I'm not going to be Joe Rogan at 3 hours, but I'm not.
Honestly, I'd rather be here, not because, where I'm going is not interesting, but I feel like this is going to be an amazing conversation. One of the best, the way we kicked it off. So what made me start creating content? A few things, a number of things. 4 years ago, randomly, I saw a post from Gary Gregory saying, I'm looking for interesting life stories. If you're multifamily, if you have an interesting life story, just reach out to me. I love to, record a conversation. Which is why I commented. I said, I'm not sure if my life any way interesting, but I love to be considered. So he invited me on a show on his podcast. We shot a podcast, and he said, you really have a great story. You should seriously think of ways in which you could tell your story. So that was one trigger, right? One culprit.
And we'll put a link to the show in the show notes. We'll make sure that the link is there so people can go watch, because your story is amazing.
Thank you. So it really made me think. Secondly, I looked at the industry as a whole and I said, first of all, NAA, only 2% of all the people going to a permanentized are maintenance, right? So we're like way underrepresented, the facility side of the business. In people that are actually like rather participating than in maintenance topics. And one other thing that I noticed is that the presentations that are on maintenance related topics are typically not held by people with a maintenance background.
Yeah.
So they're individuals, they're professional speakers. They're individuals that have been on the management side of things, right, but non-maintenance management. So I'm thinking there's got to be something out there that we could also bring to the table. Like, I believe I will always follow practitioner, like through the fire. I'm not very attracted by the professorial type of profile, because I think a lot of times, professors have a bad, they're in a toxic relationship with reality. In other words, it goes back to the bubble that we're talking about. What they're seeing doesn't always have a connection with the real world. And that's the reason why whether it's like, less polished or like is not such a great presentation, I would rather listen to the person that has done it. In other words, don't tell me how to do it. Tell me how you did it. That's what I want to learn, right? So I said, well, me and others like me could actually have a voice in this, right? So then I started my podcast that was in part maintenance related with maintenance guests and maintenance topics. And then the other part was I noticed that all the conferences that we're going to, industry conferences, they don't record the content. So basically, I'm seeing this content as something that's like a living thing. And then once the mics are turned off, the content dies. Literally dies in that room.
Yep.
And it's not scalable, right? So in other words, you have maybe 100 people watching a presentation. How much they remember going back home? And how much they remember a week, a month, 6 months from? Not a whole lot. There's studies, that prove that. I'm talking about like there's data.
Yeah,
that supports that. So I'm saying, why are they not like capturing this? Why are they not capturing? So I said a way to capture great conversations would be to just hit play, right? And I started with a Zoom call. I had a free Zoom account, 40-minute limit. I had to stay below 40 minutes with my conversations. It was free. Then I was like, okay, I'm gonna pay $100 or whatever a year, and I don't have to limit at 40 minutes. Yeah. And I was doing all virtual. And then I moved to in person, and things have kind of evolved. Another piece here was at that time, I had a desire to get into public speaking, to speak publicly on various topics like maintenance and employee turnover and other things I was passionate about. So I was thinking, okay, you can't really like pitch to conferences that you want to be a public speaker when you never spoke in public.
Yeah, it's a hard catch-22.
Yeah, exactly. So then I said the closest thing to public speaking is gonna be putting myself in front of a camera and talk to various people, right? This gets me in a way close, right? Not in a room with people, but in a virtual room with people. And again, that led to my podcast. So those were the reasons. Now, this is for the podcast in general. What I've noticed when it comes to like the written content is that there's a huge void of organic content that actually people find valuable, me included. Mm-hmm. And I started with me, right? I look from me being a consumer of content, like a reader. When I open my app or my LinkedIn, I wanted to find stuff that I stop the scroll and I consume, I read it. Just like back in the day, we read the newspaper. So I said, well, I'm just gonna like start posting and see what's happening. Initially, it was just me. At the time, I was, director of maintenance for various companies during my career. And I was starting by taking pictures with site team members and, giving a shout out or telling a story about, how some great accomplishment, or taking pictures of a project, like a renovation project that I was overseeing. And then you went into like employee turnover and retention and other things that I was passionate about. So It's kind of like an organic, transformation. It was a journey. It started with very little bit here and there, and very seldom, and then I have gotten to a point to where the past, I think, 3 years, I think I have like less than 5 days that I haven't posted anything. Like
For 3
in
years.
3 years,
Wow.
I don't think that I have more than 5 days together combined.
And by the way, because I know I see your stuff, you're talking 7 days a week. You're not talking Monday through Friday.
No, I'm not talking about work days. I'm talking about 24/7, 365, like 365 days a year. I might be missing one or two. And I also post like average 3 times a day, not just like one post. So it helps, right? I think this is the power of compound.
Yes.
And people say, why do you post so much? There's so much to be said against what I'm doing, right? There's various like theories saying, well, your posts compete against each other and it does more harm than, it helps. I actually happen to think about this in a different way. First of all, we have quality thoughts going through our mind, hundreds every day. Every time we don't do anything about a thought, like we don't share it with the world, that thought could be dying. I can imagine like those quality thoughts going to like a huge cemetery and just being buried. And they're buried for good because our mind, we don't always like remember to go back to that.
Well, so what I talked about at the very beginning. With like I'll have the idea and then 2 weeks later it's not relevant anymore. So
yes, I mean that's exactly right. So I figure I had to document, and now with technology it's like so easy.
Yeah.
When I get an idea, I don't have to write a post. I just take my my phone and I speak to it, right? And I use the notes version, like the voice recording app.
Yep.
And then I could always go back. I have like over 500 of those.
Sure.
So that was a long answer to your question, but that's kind of like the journey of me becoming a content creator.
Well, and it's interesting because what you talked about with the insecurity of folks from a posting perspective. So I haven't done every day for 3 years. I'm not even close to that, but I've tried this year being the calendar year of 2025, to do Monday through Friday. And it's the first time I'd ever been trying to be that consistent. And I probably missed 10 days, Monday through Friday, somewhere in there, including yesterday, by the way. But from an engagement perspective, absolutely the numbers reflect. Like the more you are posting, the more engagement you are going to have. The question then becomes, what's your goal? Is it engagement or is it delivering value? And there's nothing right or wrong about either one of those. But what I find interesting, what you've started with was people's comfort of being in front of a microphone or having a voice. Because I do see the executives that also, they want to have that very curated voice. So they want to have that public, they want to be in front of it, but they want to make sure, to your point, there's no mistakes. And I think that comes down to whether you call it insecurity or you call it, imposter syndrome. And I think that lives very strong in our industry because of what you mentioned is, well, let me ask you, when you were growing up, and I realize you grew up in Romania under communist control, but did you ever think you were going to be either a content creator or even a maintenance supervisor?
No way.
No.
No way. I went to law school.
I mean, same thing. My degree is aquatic biology. Like I had no intention of being in multifamily housing in any way, shape, or form. And that's such a common theme in our industry that I think it does lead itself to stronger imposter syndrome, because you always go back, well, I didn't go to school for that. I didn't go to school for that. And it's interesting because I think that your idea of breaking into the public speaking realm, whether it's your goal or not, speaking into a camera and getting comfortable to that is a great entryway to it. It's ultimately, I think, relatively low risk, but it's again, it's interesting the way all those started to tie together for me as you're starting to bring that through. So, anyways,
yeah, the insecurity part, I think folks are looking at it the wrong way with the reasons behind it, right? I didn't go to school. I picked up on that. I didn't go to school for it. I think that we're very blessed here in the United States that the American society allows this upward mobility, real upward mobility that I never seen anywhere else in the world. And I'm gonna explain, right? You could literally start from the very ground, like, picking up trash, doing like the most like basic job with a company and actually become the CEO of the company, to run the company. Of course, going through all the steps. In many other parts of the world, when you go for an interview, and I had this experience very recently, is I interview folks from overseas. A simple question, when I ask them, what's your level of English? And they will say, like, I am certified C3 or C2. They will put some letters and numbers, said, forgive my ignorance, I don't know what this is. And truthfully, without being rude, I don't even care what this is. But I could tell how much you know if you were willing to like have a 5-minute conversation. Let's just talk about it. So I'm coming with this mindset of like, it's not about a diploma, it's about what you could do. Like, what is like your skill set level? What can you do? What can you deliver when it comes to like speaking English? Well, in other parts of the world, you don't even get an interview unless you show a number of like diplomas, qualifications, and everything. And a lot of times, as you and I both know, they don't mean a lot.
It's interesting because what you just described was what used to be described as the American dream. Was that if you are willing to put in the work and the effort and you have the acumen for it, the opportunity is there for you. And I'll get in trouble for saying this, but I don't care. At some point over the last, let's call it 20 years, that American dream somehow got conflated with everyone deserves a house. And now at this point, I do hear like, okay, because again, we're in the business of providing homes for people. And that is an incredible privilege that I do not take lightly in any way, shape, or form. And this is actually when I did a podcast with Jay on this, and we talk about this. At some point, the idea of renting a house versus everyone owning a house or renting an apartment became villainized. And it became like, oh, renters are less than. And we see it in the NIMBYism movement. Like, I don't want those apartments in my backyard because apartments equals bad. I've seen a lot of apartments in my days. And yes, there are some apartments that definitely do equal bad, but not all apartments are the same. And I think that reiterating what you just said, which is the amazingness of the country we live in and the opportunity for someone to be able to come in and, again, assuming they have the acumen, which is both the intelligence, the willingness and ability to learn, and the willingness and ability to work hard, you have the opportunity to make something for yourself. And that is an amazing thing. So I'll get off my soapbox now on that one, but it's been an interesting one. So with that, we've talked about from the content and how you got into the content game. I love that you equated it over to the conference speaking setup too, because I agree with you that it is a travesty that we have microphones in all of these rooms and not recording devices. But in that same breath, that used to be the old model for the speaking gigs, because those speakers would do that same talk at FAA, then they'd go to GAA, then they'd go to TAA, then they'd go to the California Apartment Association, and they were doing that same thing, and that was their gig. It was as you put it, the professor model. That they've created a talking to professor model. I mean, I'll ask you. I think that podcasts and LinkedIn Live have the opportunity to completely upset the conference education circuit, not the networking, but the education circuit. Am I completely coming out of left field with that? Do you agree, disagree, want to fight? Where are you at with that?
You're 100% right on the money. When we're looking at who dominates the scene, right? We see veterans of speaking gigs, like individuals that made a career out of this. And I wanted to say there's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely.
Right? I have respect for all of them, really, for all that I know. I don't know all of them. So huge respect, mad respect there. I just think that we as a society consume content a different way. I'm personally very attracted by, the podcast. I actually think podcast is kind of like the present and the future of the way we communicate, the number one form of communication. and I could go here, like, we could go so deep, we could go for an hour just for a podcast.
Yeah.
But I truly believe, podcast is the way to go. Like you said, LinkedIn Live is the way to go. More than just like it's kind of the difference between a static situation and a very dynamic situation. Podcasts are very dynamic, especially the ones that are done well, like a sit down with an organic conversation, nothing scripted. You don't send me a list of questions. You just ask me what would I want to talk about. So it was, just to have a broad idea. You don't have a list of questions in front of you. Like,
I literally folded it and put it away as soon as we started.
this is but this is not. You see, that's the difference between podcast and the old school media TV.
Yeah.
Because in that TV environment, is like question answer. They have to check some boxes. Us here in this environment, we want to touch on certain topics, but we go where the conversation takes us. I mean, how odd is that, we just kind of like started with talking about Jay Parsons. There was never, like, in your mind and my mind, just came up in a very organic way. It was just a thought for a second, and
that was kind of that was all you, my friend. You brought him up. I'm not taking the blame for that. No, I'm kidding. But let's continue this down, because again, we're talking about the conference circuit. We're talking about the speakers. We're talking about, and you're right. There is that core group. And I'm not trying to bash them in any way, so this is going to sound like I probably am, but I'm not trying to. But there is that core group that has really dominated the conference speaking scene for a couple decades now.
For as long as I've been around.
Yeah,
for sure.
And I see others coming into the space, and there's certainly other areas of conversation. But to your point, one of the things that has been also a consistent theme over the last couple decades is the back of the house, and I'll use that term loosely, the back of the house not getting the same amount of attention and love that the front of the house is always getting. I am always been a huge proponent of the fact that if I had to get rid of one of the teams on site, I'm getting rid of the leasing team before I'm getting rid of the maintenance team. And not just because they can physically do things. Like, I think they deliver more value. And I'm not saying everyone should go throw away their leasing team. I'm not saying that. One of the big conversations that's out there right now is, how do we do more with less? I'm willing to call centralization what it is. Centralization is much more of a specialization role, and it is also a role that is designed to be able to be more effective. And when you are more effective, that means you probably are going to have a lower headcount overall as an organization. I know people don't like calling that out. I'm a realist. Where, as someone who spent decades in that space, as someone who's talking to people about this daily, where do you see maintenance operations from a centralization effort, and where do you think the real benefits to organizations exist by implementing whatever model you think would be the best model?
Let's unpack here. Let's just start with a beginning, and I would say, can centralization work for small mom and pop operations? This is the only way it will work. Let's just say that you're a small owner, right? And you have 20 units here and 50 units here and 7 units here. Not enough units in one place to justify a full-time employee. Therefore, you're going to have to split that workforce. And you could even go specialized, like you said. Have a plumber over a certain portfolio that totals 400 or 500 units to do just plumbing work. I think what we forget in an institutional space is that when we're looking at a 200, 300, 400 unit site, this is the business that's already being scaled. When we're trying to centralize, basically what we're doing is super scaling that business, right? Because you take a scale business and then you add more scale businesses and you say, we're gonna now super scale, right? Where the mistakes happen are we're not actually focusing on operating with excellence our current sites in a current non-centralized model. When you try to super scale a business that has a lot of pain and a lot of blind spots, what do? You amplify the pain.
Yeah.
You're actually not solving. And on top of that, you say, we're going to do it better with less people. So you could see how, you see where I'm going here, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, it turns out not to be a great experience. Actually, it fails. Let's just say the word, because that's what it is. some of the largest operators in the country are actually quitting that model after spending years of trying now and millions of dollars invested in the programs.
See, and this is what amazes me about that is, back in the 90s when I was just coming up in property management, I worked for an organization. Now, granted, I got to put some caveats on this. We owned and operated everything ourselves. So we had full control. We had relative regional density. So within the San Diego marketplace that I'm specifically thinking of, I think we had 5 assets, all of which were 400 units plus, no, 6. So we had relative density, but we had implemented a specialization model back then. So for example, every property, yes, had someone who is HVAC certified, but we had an HVAC tech for the region. And they did, unless it was an emergency, they were doing all the HVAC calls for the San Diego region. We had an entire specialization of make-readies. So it was the make-ready crew that literally did the make-readies on every property. So the people who were on site and were only on that site were usually the maintenance supervisor themselves. Based on these sites, again, one of them was 1,000 units. We had a couple housekeepers on site. And then you usually had one maintenance tech. We even our landscapers, everything landscaping was in-house. We did it ourselves. We had a landscaping crew for the region that would go from property to property and do all the things. Again, you got to have site, you got to have density, you got to have size to be able to pull that off. But I'm struggling with why a specialized model like that can't work for some of these groups in these things. So
let's unpack. You want to unpack?
Please.
Yeah. So let's just say that, let's just take Dallas area. And you have properties that don't necessarily are around the corner from each other. So there's some driving involved. Let's just say 5 miles is the average distance. And it's July in Texas. It's very hot. Mm-hmm. Let's just say that you have the specialized model to where you have, let's say for the sake of the argument, 2,000 units combined in six different sites in a certain area. And you have your specialized HVAC tech or techs. You could say 2 or 3 techs. When someone calls in an AC, it's an emergency. So you're going to have during the summertime emergencies at all sites at the same time.
Sure.
That person could only cover one place at one time, right? And if you have them take care of a AC here at place A, and then they had to drive to place B, you made it like so much more ineffective because you're just adding windshield time. And then if you just say for today, you're only running AC tickets here, right? Because it's enough for you at 300-400 units, probably gonna have like 10-15 calls. So there's enough work here. What do you do with the rest of the sites? So it's always this conversation. How do you balance peak times when they're like super busy with the slow times? Because you also go like winter time. You're not gonna have a lot of HVAC work, right? Yeah. So what do you do with those guys? So if you budget for the peak time and you instead hiring like 1 HVAC tech, you hire 6 HVAC techs. What are you gonna do, during the winter time? Can you find work for them? Yeah, of course you do. But the idea about hiring specialized people is that you're gonna hire, pay them better, and then in a low season you're gonna end up having them do maybe preventive maintenance, something that a make-ready person could do for a lot less than that. So can we make things work? Yeah. I'll say if you budget for the minimum for the low season and then outsource in a peak season, you could work that out. That's a way to do it.
Well, that's when you were talking about centralization for the small mom and pop, that was what was going through my head, honestly, was like the centralization for small mom and pop is outsource it. Like use contract labor on that.
Either that or you could have like a full-time employee that's being split between the properties. Because that's the only way you're gonna run. You're not gonna be able to like make a person stationary here for like 20 or 30 or 50 units. Yeah. So they're gonna have to like travel.
Yeah.
That's the only way.
In my previous life, I did a lot of research on the way the single family rental space operates from a maintenance perspective. And because obviously has to be a centralized model, quote unquote. Because
100%.
Yeah. Now, granted, it's interesting because if you actually go review their model, at least for the big boys, it is a completely decentralized model. They don't go to any property. They literally have, and this kind of get us into AI a little bit. They have issued a truck to their maintenance supervisor or their maintenance person. That truck has a very specific par stock on it. Part of what they do with every home that they end up purchasing to rent out is they standardize the fixtures and everything else inside. So they don't have to have 5 different types of sink valves with them. They can have the one that they know is going to be in every single one. And as they are going through work orders, they're, I'm assuming, using a barcode scanner to be able to accomplish this and not just tracking through the work order, but I don't know this for sure. But anyways, through the work order process, they're logging essentially every part that they've used off of that truck. On Wednesday, they submit the order. On Friday, the order shows up at their house. And their job for every single one of them Friday morning is to restock their truck on there. To me, I was like, okay, because I was expecting everybody goes to a centralized warehouse. Trucks are dismissed from there, because it was the old model that I did on the houseware side for corporate housing. No, it's completely decentralized, and they're completely using technology to do just-in-time delivery, to be able to take care of these houses. And I think that let's put it, I don't want multifamily to completely give up on some type of specialized model on the maintenance side, because I think there are ways that it can deliver value and work ultimately to the residents' best interest. Because if it's not in the residents' best interest, why are we doing this? Kind of a thing. But let me ask on this, because one of the things that, again, I haven't been a property manager, like truly a property manager, since I think I got promoted to district manager in 2000. Yeah, in 2000. It was right at 9/11, the year 2000, Y2K. But back then, barcode scanners were just coming into maintenance shops. And I was shocked at the resistance that we saw across our organization to any type of technology coming into the maintenance side of the equation. Now, granted, this is 2000, not 2024. Where are you seeing real progress from a technology, in particular, everyone's 2 favorite letters, AI, on the maintenance side of the equation? Because part of, to me, specialization and centralization is not just how can we do things more effectively, what can we stop doing? Like, what can we actually turn over to technology effectively? Where are you seeing that type of progress being made on the maintenance side of the equation?
If we're talking about operations, I had to say that not a lot of progress has been made.
Okay.
If we're switching tables and we're looking at products that are available that could actually make maintenance operations better, that's a great news out there, because there's technology that does a lot of things.
Okay.
I just wanted to point a few of them, right?
Please.
For example, old school maintenance dispatch. Your service manager comes in the morning, they sit in front of a computer and they look at the work orders, they do an audit. And then if there are any work orders that had to be printed, they print it. Then they look at the stack. And they just kind of like make little stacks for the technicians for whenever they're ready.
Yeah.
And granted, this is like the ideal situation. Only happens for like 10-15% of the cases. The rest of the cases, like chaotic. Everybody's like coming in. They pick their own work orders. Sometimes the service manager comes like after the techs are coming in. The techs are already like, picking their own assignments and everything. But let's just talk ideally, right? So the service manager assigns various tasks to various people. They're coming in 9 o'clock or whatever time, 5-minute meeting, give them the assignments, have a great day, right? So a lot of manual work. Technology could like eliminate completely that. And this is how you eliminate it. You basically take each technician profile and then you tell the system, tell the technology, this is what this technician is good at. He's great at HVAC, plumbing, and electrical. So the system knows to send those type of tickets to that particular individual. Secondly, back to the classic system where service manager is handling work. How many times you will find guys hanging out at a maintenance shop during the day, just chatting or smoking? Hey, what's going on?
Yep.
Well, we're done with the work that the service manager gave us. We don't have anything else to do. That's the happiest time, right? The service manager's probably like under a sink or like dealing with a difficult issue with a flood or HVAC thing. Well, technology comes in place. Again, you could set up minimums, right? Just say each technician should have a minimum of like 3 or 5, whatever number you determine that's the magic number, at least 5 in their queue, unless there's not enough work orders to like fulfill that number. And then if you say it's 5, when they have 5 and they complete the first one, the system is going to automatically push another one to their queue. So they will never have to have that excuse anymore saying, we don't have anything else to do. And remember, this does not have to be service manager. It's completely automated. A system does that. So that's one beauty of what's happening with technology. The second one is building AI agents to help support the personnel. And this goes hand in hand with how do we train and then how do we learn, going back to like to presentations at the conferences, right? I don't think that our employees and we as humans wanted to learn like back in a day to where your boss, your trainer director sets up like a curriculum of like classes that you got to sit in front of a computer and take. Just pay enough attention to memorize enough information to pass a test, which you will forget the very next day.
Well, yeah, that has been one of my challenges. So I've in my career, I've had to build several different courses for learning management platforms, and they always want the quiz right afterwards. And I'm like, they just heard it 10 seconds ago. If they can't pass, this is not, did you learn it? This is an intelligence test. Can you, I mean, it is some of the, yes, completely agree on this. When you're talking about that technology that can sort out who should be getting what work order, et cetera, you had mentioned that as the supervisor, you'd be putting that information in. Can't the technology actually do that by looking at, time to completion on various different work orders of various different types and be able to say, okay, Adrian's really good at plumbing, but Andrew clearly has no idea what he's doing with plumbing because it takes him 3 hours to do what Adrian can do in 5 minutes. We need to be shoveling that over to Adrian. And with that type of technology, as a leader in the space, do you worry that's going to pigeonhole people into this is your role because it's what you're good at and we're not developing you into all the other things?
So first part of the question, yes, the answer is yes, short answer, yes. And this is how is going. The only way it's going to get accomplished is if you have data integrity.
True.
Is that all saying trash in, trash out, right?
Yeah.
So if you put trash into the system and you allow, for example, a leasing agent to close work orders and they never type any notes, they just click complete, that system is never going to know. I don't care what type of technology, is never going to truly know what Adrian or Andrew's skills are. The way you know is that when you have like you have a protocol to where they check in and they check out, so that those timestamps are being recorded, and then notes and everything that was done, notes and pictures. And then you have data integrity that no one besides the technician that was assigned to that particular work order has access to alter notes, enter any type of anything. That should be the only person that it's allowed to put in notes and complete a work order. No one else.
Okay, so the property manager in me, all the hairs just went up on the back of my neck when you said that. Because, well, two things. Number one, I think that the challenge has always been getting people to invest the time, energy, and effort into providing the really good notes and not so much taking pictures, that's kind of become standard, but really those good notes to be able to do, like, I just changed the flange on a toilet. Do I really need to put notes on this? But I think that's where, with the right technology, and I hadn't thought about it till you said it, that's where Agentic AI really could probably start helping with the data quality aspect of it. Not to get too big brother, but we can know when you entered an apartment, when you exit an apartment by geocaching or from the code on the lock if you've got IoT in place. So you can start to capture that. The pictures can tell 1,000 words to an AI that's able to evaluate before and after pictures on it. So again, that's a really interesting use case, but the one where I'd push back on, where you don't want to have, you said, anyone else putting notes on a work order. If that resident comes back into the office and for whatever reason has complaints about the completion of that work order, I want it on that work order. And I don't know that the maintenance tech would get that. And I realize that's a niche use case, but maybe there is the need for, the technician notes where only the technician can be putting that in there, and then additional notes after that.
You're bringing up a great point, and this is also part of existing technology to where a resident gets notified immediately after the work order is deemed as completed, and they have the ability not to type in notes, but to actually say, no, this was not completed. What that does, it reopens the work order with the resident's notes, saying even something as simple as like, this has not been completed. So this forces it back into the technician queue, or maybe alerts the service manager or the community manager to say, we have a callback here situation. Okay, so how are we gonna do better this time so we could address the issue? So yeah, technology could resolve that as well.
Okay. So when you went back to, I want to go back to you saying that using agentic AI in operations, because I haven't given this a lot of thought, because I wasn't thinking about ways that we could be using, and again, everyone listening to this probably knows what agentic AI is, but just in case, it's an AI that can actually act on your behalf and execute tasks, not just provide an information situation. Where else do you see the opportunity for agentic AI to come into the operations side of our business?
Training.
Okay.
Learning management, the way we know it, is dead. It's dead. We just don't, most people just don't know it yet. It's completely dead. And I'm going to explain why.
Please.
We're talking about, the old curriculum sitting in front of a computer. Nobody wants to do that. When you're looking at adoption rates, are abysmal. People are embarrassed to share what the adoption rates, what the completion rates are for that type of learning environment. Companies don't see the value in it. They just don't know that something else exists. So the way they still stick with it is that compliance, we got to show compliance.
Right.
And this goes to fair housing, preventing sexual harassment, and a few other classes that are mandatory. AI could also build a system to where you could track compliance. But, that's a different story. As long as people learn that, there's better ways to get educated, they'll go there. Here's a couple of examples. YouTube and Reddit. There are incredibly large groups on Reddit of maintenance technicians that exchange information. And a lot of folks are going there to gather information.
Really?
Yeah, it's a thing. It's a real thing. It's a real thing. It's huge. Reddit is huge. There's also some Facebook groups, not as large, but I'm a member of a couple of them. I haven't gotten to the Reddit groups yet, but I will make a point to be there and just kind of understand the information. With YouTube is the same thing. Young folks right now, not just the young, but even the older generation, they pull up their phone and they just type in, a search, a question, because they wanted to learn how to, right?
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and people do it at home. And why not a technician? So it's in their pocket. The problem with Reddit and YouTube is that information it hasn't been vetted, right? So sometimes you might be following not the best advice, right? From a technical perspective. It's based on algorithms and what people like, but there's no validation that that's actually the right information. That's the way. Now, agentic AI could do that for you, because you could train the agents on a specific set of data that someone has vetted prior. Right? So they don't go worldwide, all over the world, and pull from all the information that's available on the internet. Now, that's also valuable in a sense. I couldn't tell you how many times I've encountered a situation and I literally just pull up my phone, took a picture, and then plug it into ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT, I'm looking at this thing. I really don't know how to troubleshoot. What could this be? And more often than not, I got such a great detailed answer, and I follow, and it worked, that it's quite amazing. And we're talking about the large learning model, right? Like ChatGPT. Agents are trained on specific sets of data.
Yeah.
They don't go to the internet, to what's available on the internet to learn. So it's a fairly safe environment, right? There's training wheels out there. Like, they don't go to the World Wide Web, right? So there's limits to where they could go to get an answer. So that's a good thing.
It's interesting as you're describing that. I kept going to the question in my head is, okay, why aren't the suppliers building this into their support platform? So think about it. If you had like,
why aren't they?
Yeah.
Why aren't they? I just think that they have the same struggle. Let's just take our friends in the MRO business, right?
Yeah.
The way they do business with apartment industry. Do you think honestly that they have a standing chance if Amazon tomorrow comes with a multifamily division and they compete with the existing ones? We know who they are.
I would tell you that every single one of them has a standing chance, but Amazon would be an immediate major player. Immediate. Yes, they would probably immediately go to number one. The others might have a standing chance but yes, they would be a significant player day one.
My prediction here is that they're gonna become, best case scenario, they're gonna become sellers on Amazon. Like they will even the multi-billion-dollar ones that we know, right?
Yeah.
Backed by very large corporations, they're not equipped. They don't have, and they're light years behind Amazon. It's not like we're gonna spend $1 billion or $10 billion and compete with Amazon. It's just not possible. The entire infrastructure, the logistics, everything that Amazon has figured out, you can't build that with just money. Like it takes an incredible amount of time and also brain power too, right? Technology could help an AI. It takes, like, they've been building this for years.
Yes.
And they've been building it to take over the world. They didn't build it for profits. They've been losing money for many years in a row. But they had the system down to like incredible detail. And there's just no way from our current MRO. So I think in a way I wanted to answer this question by bringing this example, but they're not really led, I had to say, right? And it hurts me to say it. They're not really led by visionary people. And let me tell you how I would envision that particular side of the business, like the MRO. First of all, build every single maintenance shop to be a replica of your Amazon warehouse. So you actually have like the HD Supply warehouse and the Pine Tree Apartments maintenance shop, which is actually like a warehouse in miniature, right? Have all the bins. They have those weight-based sensors. So when you pull a part out of the bin, it automatically updates the inventory, just like an Amazon warehouse does. Have AI cameras that actually get facial recognition and everything, and they read every single part that the technicians are carrying in and out of the shop, and automatically like puts the responsibility on that particular individual, matches with what the needs are and what the notes are on a ticket. So it creates this entire ecosystem to where people don't steal anymore, they don't waste, and everything's being recorded. At any given time, by pulling an app on your phone, if you're like a regional manager or VP of maintenance, you know exactly what their needs for parts are. And by setting minimum levels of inventory, also automatically replenishes. What you were saying,
Yep.
In a way with a single family homes where, you place the order on Wednesday and Friday, this is like automated. This is something that I should be envisioning for them. And also like making, they also offer like in-person training, which is great. I believe that we still need that component to where people could see with their hands. They see someone else, fixing something with their hands.
Yep.
I still think that's going to be the most powerful going forward, but it's not scalable. Just for context, I was talking to Paul Rhodes, actually, he mentioned at a conference a month ago, national level, we only have 10 trainers for the entire industry. So let's just break this down. There's about 23 million apartments in the United States.
Market rate.
Exactly. Yeah. So if we use the 1 per 100 workers, that means that for 23 million apartments, we should have about
230,000
230,000 employees in maintenance, right? And then if you divided that by 10, it means that we have a national trainer for 23,000 employees, maintenance employees. So you tell me, how can we scale that? We can't. We can't. And you can't just like produce trainers. Like that's a very long process, right? And not everyone could be a trainer. Anyway, so I'm saying that to say it's great that we still do like in-person stuff, and I'm all for it. But that's not a scalable model. You have to somewhere along the way to plug in that technology that actually helps. And AI agents are it.
Well, and it's to bring this kind of full circle, when you were describing this challenge, especially when you're describing the maintenance shack, and you were describing the technology that would have to go into it, or not have to, that should go into it, I immediately put on my asset manager hat. And thinking old school as an asset manager, I'm going to push back on several things on that.
Okay.
I'm going to push back on the fact that I have to pay for all of this technology, either through the price of the goods that I have from Amazon implementing all of this stuff, or I have to just pay for the technology. That's kind of the minor thing on it. The major thing on it was, I don't want an automatic refresh because I want to be able to approve all of my POs, because I want to be able to control the flow of expenses through my P&L. And I want to make sure at any given point in time, I can make sure that I have things hit in the periods that I want. And if I have to go without parts for a little bit because we just don't have the cash to be able to do that, I'm going to be a slumlord, but those are the things I want. And I think that's a great example, to go back to the beginning, of how we often as an industry allow the way we've always done it to get in the way of the innovation. Because what you described is incredibly innovative. And yeah, that is what Amazon warehouses are doing right now. And it's the next generation of the barcodes from when I was there, because that was the promise of the barcodes. You're going to know every part that you have, exactly, you can prove it. You're not going to have any theft anymore. I mean, until nobody was scanning any barcodes and nothing ever happened with it.
But you added that human, you left that human element in it.
Yeah.
With today's technology, you could completely eliminate that, because that's where always like the hiccups happen when you plug in the human element. Like you eliminate this with today's technology, then yeah, you're not gonna have that issue.
We've been going for an hour now, Adrian. What have we not talked about that I should have asked you about?
What have we not talked about? We talked about content. We talked about technology. We talked about AI. I love to talk about maybe the future. And I'm curious, how do you envision in the most positive way, right? What are some great things that you pick up on when it comes to the future of the industry? And I say you could relate this, related to technology. You could connect it with with disruption, with other things that are happening in the world. Like, what are some things that give you hope? And I'll tell you mine after that.
Okay, I mean, I would say at my core, I'm actually pretty optimistic and a hopeful person. Like I do like to deal in reality, but like one of the things that I love about the industry is I very much look at it from the perspective of there are three people or three different entities in relationship to every lease. You've got obviously the property management company that's in place. And I think that what gives me hope in that area is we are a relatively AI-proof industry, meaning that you're always going to need people to deliver the customer service, whether that be the operations side or the front of the house side. And because of that, it is a industry that AI will be complementary of, not replicative of. It won't replace all of the people. I think that gives me hope. The second area that I'm hopeful for and I love as a part of the industry is we're obviously serving the residents of the space as well. We said early on, we have the privilege of providing homes for people. And it is something that doesn't go away. And I think that the industry, especially from the operations side, more and more is embracing the fact that operations really is a hospitality-driven industry. It's related to the investment side, but those two are two different business models. And the more we are focusing on the resident experience and how do we deliver more for residents, how to provide more for residents, how do we, create an environment where people want to stay and renew, which the trends around that are awesome, is another one that gives me hope. And then the other one that I'm very hopeful on and very positive on is from an ownership perspective, institutional owners often get villainized outside of our industry. So, the evil Wall Street landlords that are in play. Number one, it's less than, I'll go high, it's less than 20% of the entire industry is owned through an institutional thing. So it's anything but the dominant factor. But what people don't want to talk about in that is look at where the institutions get their money. It's retirement funds, it's pension funds, it's the teachers groups. It's like, I'll use CalPERS and CalSTRS as the example I love because both my parents were educators in California. I have been blessed that I have not had to worry for a day in my life about where their next payment for the house or apartment or anything else is coming from, because some really good asset managers invested in a whole bunch of different commercial real estate, including multifamily. Now, the biggest thing that gives me hope more than anything else on that is the government at this point. We for years flew under the radar, and we always complain that no one's paying attention to the bureaucracy and everything else. Well, that changed about 2 years ago, and we're very much in the focus of the government now. But for the most part, they're realizing that the United States has a severe undersupply of total housing available in this country. Depending on whose estimates you look at, it's between 3 to 7 million units. And yes, that includes the million units we delivered in the last 24 months. That it is one of the very few bipartisan issues in government today that the left and the right, if they wanted to, could actually agree on and be able to make real meaningful progress. So I love the fact that, and I'm hopeful about the fact that housing can be that vehicle that not only we get more done, but actually could be the bridge that brings the two crazies from left and right actually back towards center and actually start governing instead of just throwing mud at each other. So I know that wasn't what you're expecting, but
I wasn't actually having like any expectation. Okay. I was like generally curious about your.
Well, you said you were going to share yours.
Your vision. I will. Yeah, I think technology. I'm super excited about the right technology. AI, I think, is going to do a few major things. Overall, like disrupting the entire process, the old ways we've been doing things, is going to surface inefficiencies.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about not just processes, but people they've been in places for too long, too complacent. That's gonna really come out really fast.
Yeah.
And that's not gonna be the case. So that will create things will be shaking. And then processes and technology, like AI is going to vet like all the technology that you have and tell you exactly which one you're wasting your money on and eliminate that, because there's a lot of like pseudo technology that sites and users have to deal with, unfortunately. Again, on a positive side, I think it's very positive, because just like in any other situation, you flush out the bad product, you only keep like the premium products. It's going to benefit the end user. AI, it's not replacing, like you said, humans. It's just a technology. It's just a tool. If we're looking at it other than just being a tool, I think we're missing the mark on it. AI is just a tool. It's gonna make things better for us, for the industry, for us in general. And I think the future will be bright. And I'm also betting on something that not too many people have been betting on people being hungry and actually seeing maintenance as a career, as a true career. We haven't been doing a great job at going outside of the industry and recruit, but I'm working on something that is going to be a program that's never been put in place before. It's going to create such a huge pipeline of like thousands of people knocking on our doors and wanted to become maintenance professionals. We're really close to share more information about it, but it's something that is not even like a 3 to 5 year plan. We have that in place too, but it's something meant to go way beyond my physical life. It's something that I want to start, I want to build, I want to show everybody that we could do this at scale for the industry, and I want to hand it over to the younger generation that comes after me
so
they could take this and grow it to something incredible.
Okay, so we're going to end this on that little bit of hope on that, because we could talk about this for hours, and when you're ready to talk about it,
100%.
I want to have you back and want to talk about it, because I think you just ended on what is, again, you give me hope on the industry. It's one of our industry's absolute largest challenges, but also one of the things, again, I think this industry can deliver real value above and beyond just a home, is the pathway for people with skilled trades. Like, I mean, it's a passion point for me. I don't have the resources to solve it, but it's something that, again, we as an industry have been dealing with this for decades. I mean, when I was community manager in the 90s, I lost my maintenance supervisor to the hotel across the street because the career path for him there was so much more significant than what we could offer. And we got to solve it. So I'm super excited that you're actually working on something to actually solve that. That is awesome. Okay, so let's wrap this up with the traditional wrap up. I know we didn't open it up with the traditional intro wrap up, and now you're gonna make me rethink ever doing those again. For people who have stuck through it this far, where can they learn more about you? What's the best way to connect with you? Where can they go follow you?
The easiest is Adrian Danila on LinkedIn, available. Try to answer all the DMs, try to connect with as many people as I can. That's what I spend most of my time on. Social media. Cell phone number, also available, 678-469-7708.
Wow, you're brave, man.
If you prefer, I prefer text messages.
The world prefers text messages.
I'm not always in a position to pick up the phone and answer a call, but a text message would be great. Email address, adrian@multifamilyxconsulting.com.
Awesome. Appreciate you coming in, Adrian.
I appreciate you having me. It's been a real honor, and it's been really amazing. So thank you.